Hello everyone and welcome to today's video where we're going to be covering commands. Now this is another really fun part of the API. It's a little bit complicated, but I'm going to take you through every step and we're going to be setting up commands pretty much exactly how almost every plugin and server does it, the standard way. So I'm assuming you do know what a command is, but for those that don't, whenever you type any message in the Minecraft server chat that starts with a / like you see on screen, that will be a command. And essentially what's happening is when you send that command, our client tells the server, and then the server tells all of the plugins, and it basically says, okay, is anyone trying... okay, whose command is this? And so what we're going to do today is we're going to register our command with the server so that the server will run our code when somebody runs our command. So it's pretty simple stuff, there's nothing to worry about too much, and it's got a bit of a similar setup to the events also. So what I mean by that is we're going to structure this where we have a command per class. It's very unusual to structure, for example, multiple commands in one class, or to have them in the main class like this. You generally want a class per command, because when you start scaling your plugin, it's going to get out of control fast if you have more than one command. So what we'll do is we'll create a new class, so a new Kotlin class, and then the best naming convention is what your command is, and then the word command. So let's say in today's example, we're going to be making a heal command. So somebody writes /heal, and their Minecraft health is going to be set to full. So it's a basic example, but it's very expandable. So I'm just going to call mine heal command. If you were making a kick command, you'd call it kick command. So yeah, you get the general structure of it. So I'm just going to call mine heal command, and we'll create it. Okay. And then what we're going to have to do is every command class has to implement command executor. So we're going to put the colon there and write command executor. Now remember that implements is without the parentheses and extends is with the parentheses. So we're going to leave it without because we want to implement, and you're going to get a little bit of an error. And that's because, of course, the way that implements works in Kotlin is that inside of this command executor class, you can see if we click into it, this is an interface, which means that in any subclass such as this, we are going to have to make a function to override this. So what we'll do is we'll hover over, we'll click implement, and you should find that it'll make that straight away for you. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got. We've got a function which is named onCommand, and we have 4 different variables here. So we have sender, and this is the command sender. Now, a command sender could be any different thing. It could be, for example, a console. It could be a command block, or it could be a player. And then we have the command itself. You don't need to worry about this. This is just a bit of fluff given to us by the Bucket and Spigot API. The same applies for the label. These are 2 that we're never going to use in our life because we know that if we're inside this block of code, because of the way that we're about to register our command in a second, only the heal command is going to run this block of code. So we're just going to completely ignore these 2. And in fact, a long way down this course, there's going to be a video on how to make a custom command manager, which is going to completely exclude these 2 and do some really other cool things as well. But that's a lot more advanced than this. Right now, we're just going to use the standard way of adding commands. So we're not going to look at those. And then this final one is very important. This is the args. I'm not going to delve too much into the args in this video because there's a whole video on it because it's a bit of a hefty topic, especially if you're new to this. And all this is just an array. Now we know what an array is. It's just a collection of different things, which in this case is a string. And you'll see that Kotlin has added the question mark to indicate that this can be null. However, it can't be null, so we're going to remove that. If the player doesn't specify any args, then args.size will be 0, but it will still be an actual array. And we can verify that by heading to the actual source, and you'll see it has the @notNull annotation. Okay, so great. So what we're going to do is remove the to-do, and we're going to get writing our first command. So your objective here within this onCommand method is of course to run everything that you want to happen when a player runs /heal. So you need to start training your mind to think about the exact steps that you want to happen. So the first thing that I can immediately think of is we don't want the console to be able to run it, or we don't want the command block to be able to run it, because those things don't have health bars. Only the player has a health bar. So what we're going to do is write if sender is not So that is like that, exclamation mark is player, and then we're going to return. Okay, and don't forget to import the org.bucket.entityPlayer class, and there you go. So the only problem with this is this function requires us to return back a boolean. Now the reason for that is a little bit complicated, but let me explain. It's essentially some strange design in the Bucket and Spigot API, which means that if we return true, it's not going to do anything. If we return false, what it's going to do is send out a message to the player saying, this is invalid usage, you've used the command wrong, and it'll send out the correct usage, which we're going to set in the plugin.yml. Now, everybody I know doesn't use this system, and the reason they don't use it is because if you let Bucket send out that message saying invalid usage, you can't format it, you can't make it look nice, so essentially it removes your control from the situation. So what I recommend you do is just, in every instance where you want to return, just return false or return true, it doesn't matter. As long as you haven't defined the usage in the plugin.yml, it won't send it to the player. And then what this means you can do is you can check if the usage is correct or if it isn't correct, and you can send out your own beautiful colored formatted message, and it'll be great. So this is just a little caveat in the Bucket command system. You may like it, you may not. So this first line says, if the sender is not a player, then return false, which means essentially, if the command sender wasn't a player, then stop the code execution at this line, which means anything we add after this line is not going to run unless they are a player. Now the beauty of Kotlin means that when we do sender dot, you'll see we're now going to have all of the methods for a player, not just a command sender. So for example, let's do teleport. That's a player method, or an entity method, but it's not a command sender method because of course you can't teleport the console. So this smart casting is essentially that we know sender below this line is always a player because this is going to return and stop the code if it's not, which means that we don't have to do anything like, which now means that in order to do anything to the player itself, we can just do sender dot and then just pick whatever function you want to send. So because we're doing a heal command, I think it would only make sense if we did sender.health equals, and then health is on a scale from 0 to 20. So 0 is dead and 20 is full. So with each point representing half a heart. So I'm just going to do health equals 20. Now this one's a double, not an integer. So we'll just do 20.0. And then why don't we also send them a nice message? So we'll do sender.send message. And we'll do component.text. Okay, and then we're going to write in here, your health has been restored. And then we'll just go ahead and write color, and let's do named text color dot, let's say success, so we'll say green. And then I also want to make this bold. So what I'm going to do is stick this color on the next line like that, and then we'll go on the next line and do dot decoration, and then text decoration dot bold. Okay, great. So now we're going to send a nice green bolded message saying your health has been restored. And of course, you can see all the different text decorations there if you want to mess around with them. I think bold works perfect in this case. Okay, and so you can see we've got a little bit of a hover thing. So if we hover it, it's going to tell us this is a smart cast to player. Now that's exactly what I was explaining before. So this sender has been smart casted to the player class, which means it knows it's a player, and so we have access to all of the player methods. And when the whole thing compiles, it'll sort itself out. If you want to have a little bit of fun and do some other things to the player while you're here, just go ahead and do sender dot and look at all of the different methods. You want to play them a sound, go for it. There's a full video on that, by the way. You want to give them XP, go for it. God forbid you want to ban them, then feel free. There's so many different things you can do if you want to. Just have a bit of fun, guys. But don't forget that you will have to end this function with a form of return because it does want a boolean. So I'm just going to go ahead and return false. So now, in this instance, I just want /heal to always heal them. But say I had another parameter. Let's say I wanted to do /heal and then a player's name. Now in that instance, we would be using the command argument. So this is args. Now I said that that's important, but we're not going to use it in this video because it's a big topic, and so it's got its own separate video. So if you wanted to add more arguments to the command, then just keep going with this video and you'll shortly be on that one and you can have a bit of fun with that. But But what you could essentially do is, if you're going to use more arguments and stuff, you just have if statements here and you just check for a few different things. Now, before we head out of this class, the one last thing I do want to show you is how to check if a user has the permission to run a command. So if you weren't aware, in-game everybody has permissions. So a permission will generally look like this. It'll be the name of your plugin. So for example, ours is test plugin, and then full stop, and then the thing that you want them to be able to do. So for example, heal or kick or anything you want, but ours is heal. And so what you could do to check this is if sender has permission, except what we're going to do is check if they don't have the permission. Then what you could do is firstly put in the permission in here, so test plugin dot heal, and also I don't even want to just return, because of course if they don't have the permission, I'm not going to ignore them. I want to send a message back. So what we'll do is just simply open that up, and then we'll do a message. So send message. Send plain message, just because we don't need a component. Just say you don't have permission. There we go, and return false. And that's exactly how you would add a very basic permission system. So we know by this point in the code here that they are a player, because if they're not a player, the code stops. And they do have permission, because if they don't have permission, the code stops. Okay, guys, so that's a pretty solid command right there. So that's how you use permissions. And of course, you can give players permissions using permissions plugins, or you can follow the video, which is a bit later in the course, where I'm going to show you how to set and remove permissions. I would do it now, but it's a bit of a hefty topic, and believe me, Spigot does not make it easy to do. So that's why it's a separate video. But it's alright, because for our use case now, if you want to give yourself a permission or take a permission off, then what you can do is you can just op and deop yourself. If you're opt, you have all permissions. If you're deopt, you have none. Very simple. Okay, great. So here we have quite a nice, I would say even a bit comprehensive, sort of a complicated command for our first example, but I think it's good to be thrown in the deep end with this, because commands are such an important thing that you're going to have to use throughout your journey. So there's two more things we need to do before we can fire this up. The first thing is we have to head to our plugin.yml, and inside of here, we do have to create a new line, and we'll call it commands. Okay, and you'll see it's automatically put the indentation 2 spaces ahead. Make sure that's always 2 spaces. If you may be tempted, don't use tab or anything like that, it will break. It has to just be 2 spaces. And then you just very simply put the name of your command. So ours was heal, so we'll just do heal. And then we'll go on the next line. And this is where you can set the description of your command. Now, I will just say, I know the formatting is a little bit complicated, but if you don't want any more, then you know what it is. You can just leave it like that and save it there. If you wanted to add a kick command, just like this. You wanted to add a ban command, just like that. Very simple stuff. Now, I want to add a description to my command, so I'm going to go on the next line, and I'm going to write description. And let's just say, my fun heal command. Okay, there we go, good stuff. Now, it's not ideal that we do have to register every command manually in the plugin.yml, but it's just something that plugin developers have to do because of the way that Bucket has designed it. But it's not a huge problem. So the other thing that we have to do before we fire this up is we're going to have to head to our main class, go to your onEnable function, and we have to register the command, very similar to how we did with registering the events. So we're going to do get command. You have to write that method exactly. And then you're going to write the name of the command, so heal, and then .set executor. And then you're going to create a new instance of whichever class you want that implements command executor. See, it's kind of a bit easy to understand now. So we can create a new instance of heal command, just like that. And we are going to have to put a not null right there, just to tell the code that we know this command is not null, and I can guarantee that because it's in the plugin.yml here. Okay, so that's all you have to do, guys. 3 steps. Okay, you have your command class with the onCommand function. You do whatever the hell you want to in your code. It's your code. You do whatever you want to. Break everything if you want. It's all good. Second step is to put it in the plugin.yml. And the third step is to register it in the onEnable. These three things put together, we're going to give you an awesome heal command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this up on the server, and hopefully we're going to have a working heal command. Let's have a look. Alright, so our server has just started up, and I'm going to join my localhost server now by writing either 0 or localhost, and hopefully we're going to have a working heal command. So let's go ahead and take a look at /pl. Okay, so we have our test plugin there. And then here's a little pro tip. You can do help test plugin, and it's going to show all the commands that we have within that plugin. So here's the description of the command that we put in the plugin.yml, my fun heal command. Then what I'm going to have to do is head into survival and take a bit of damage. So just take some damage. Okay, and then I'll walk away, and we'll see if I do /heal. There we go. So our health has been set to full, and it says your health has been restored. So now I can take damage in any way. I could jump off a building, do whatever, and I can run /heal, and my health will go back to full. And also we have that nice message in chat. Alright guys, that is commands. So the good news is, I think hopefully you're feeling at the end of this lecture that this wasn't too complex. I know when you see all of this code here, it can look a little bit confusing, but I think you probably have the fundamental knowledge of what's going on here. This is just one big method. This is just one big function. We're doing a load of stuff inside of it relevant to our command, and we just have to register it in a weird spigot-like way, but it's just how it is. So for every different command you want, just simply create a class for it, call it something relevant to your command, and just copy and paste this code, change the information in it, add it to the plugin.yml, and change whatever you want to do, and you will be flying. And you can have a million commands if you want. So I do recommend after this video, just go and make another command or two, do something fun, like, for example, set the player on fire if they run a command, or kick them, or just do something fun. Just have a bit of fun with it and enjoy yourself. So yeah, if you need any help, don't be afraid to join the Discord and get in touch. Other than that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we will see you in the next one.